Hello, everyone. Welcome to Automating Success with Joe Langton. Today, you'll notice my daughter is not sitting next to me. I have some very special guests. First, I'm going to introduce Chris Broadhead, who is actually my producer, and I thought it was a great time to let my audience introduce the man behind the curtain for us at Automating Success. I'm bringing him on the show. Chris is going to ask some questions of me. I'll get into why that's going to happen in a minute. And then I have someone that's near and dear to me, Vicki Cascus, who actually is my sister, even though you see no last name, but of course she's married. And she is a trauma nurse at a Trauma One hospital and actually runs a COVID unit. So as you can probably see, why do I have a very intelligent COVID nurse, my podcast producer, on a podcast called Automating Success. Well, anybody that follows the podcast knows that I've had a little hiatus for about a month and a half. And some of you have actually messaged me and asked, where the podcasts are. I had a very, very horrible run with COVID-19. As I tell people, I feel as if I really drew the short straw. But what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And now that I've recovered, I feel stronger than ever, very focused back on my businesses and everything that I'm doing. But for a little while there, I had to take care of myself because I realized quickly that if I wasn't whole and healthy, a lot of things that I've been working on, I would have to rely on other people to do. And I like to be the guy out in front with it. So, I guess with that, I'll say kind of some of the reasons I'm doing what we're doing today is I felt there's things about COVID that don't get reported about. You turn on the news and you see how many people have died. You go on social media and you hear how many people just felt like they had the cold or the flu. And it's a very divided camp. Everybody that follows me knows I'm not a political guy. I don't try to get into the politics. All I'm doing is talking about my experience. My experience is unique to me. Quite frankly, it was quite emotional. Everybody that loves and knows me, that's part of my inner circle, sees me as their rock, one of the strong people in their life. And I have to say that that was one of the most challenging things for me. And the reason it was challenging was when people were text messaging me, when they found out how sick I was, everybody kept saying, "You're the strongest person I know. You're going to get through this." Some people were texting me that had COVID at the time when I was sick and would say, if COVID takes you, I'm scared for me because there's no way a strong guy like you is going to die from COVID. I tell you, for as much as that sounds like the nicest thing someone could possibly say to you, it was one of the hardest things for me to digest. Those people were not quarantined with me in my room. My quarantine lasted much longer than the CDC says because I ran a fever for a very long time. I'll get into all the details after I give this heartfelt opening, because this is me opening up to every one of you as my listener. So I'm going to tell you some of the emotional things I dealt with before we get into some of the medical things. December 10th, I was hanging out at a great friend of mine, my neighbor, actually I should say one of my best friends in my life in a short period of time since we met. Left his house at 11, fell asleep, woke up at 12:30 and had a 101.9 fever. First thought that goes through my mind is, my gosh, I hope I didn't get my best friend neighbor sick because he has a blockage in his one of his arteries and he has a procedure he's supposed to go to. And the first thing his doctor tells him is, all you have to do is not get sick. And that's the first thought that goes through my mind. I don't think about me having COVID. If I have the flu, all I think about is, I hope I didn't get my best friend sick because he's supposed to go in for a procedure in a few days. I wake up the next morning and I felt like I got run over by a truck just from the legs down. My legs hurt so bad, it was crazy. But at that moment in time, I feel like maybe I just have the flu. I'm kind of in COVID denial, probably just have the flu, no problem. I get my test results December 14th. Now here's where I loop Vicky in a little bit, and I'll kind of set the stage for why it was really important for me to have her come on this episode. I start to text my sister. I tell her the symptoms I have. I have a weird metallic taste in my mouth. My nose is very dry. I'm hardly making any saliva, even though I have this weird taste. I'm running, at this point, mid-grade fever. Nothing's crazy yet. And, you know, at this point, I have a little bit of a dry cough, not much. And I feel like I'm kind of surviving. The biggest thing is the body pains. So I talked to Vicky, and she says, you know, Joe, here's the thing. Everything I know, the worst is, and Vic, correct me on this, like days 7 to 10, right? Or maybe it's a little earlier than that.
That actually is what they were saying at first. I think it is getting a little earlier as the disease goes on, but yeah, that's when people will end up in the hospital, is day 7 to 10.
Okay.
But now day 4 to 7 is what they're actually saying.
All right. So she tells me day 7 to 10, right? So I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, I'm feeling terrible, but I'm feeling good about the fact that my cough is not that bad. I feel like I just have a bad case of the flu. And it is what it is, right? I have it because December 14th, I get my positive test result. Now, one of the things that was terrible for me, everybody knows how much I love my daughter. I find out she has it Sunday. Sunday, she texts me because I had gotten it on a Friday. She texts me on Sunday, Dad, I don't feel so good. You know, so of course I'm concerned about my daughter, but I'm already quarantining. So she's in her room. I'm in my room. I tell her, take her temperature. She tells me she has 102.7 fever. Now, anybody that's a parent, you know, knows that you quickly think about your children before yourself. So I'm in my room feeling terrible, staying in my room for the other 4 people in my house so they don't get it. And, you know, so I know she's sick, right? So this is just kind of the emotional, like just I'm setting the thing here. And December 18th, I wake up and I call my sister and I go, man, Vic, my lungs are burning. I don't know if you remember this conversation, Vicky, but my lungs, I mean, as I take a breath, I can't even describe the burn. I guess the best way I can describe it is if you took a really hot shower and then ran downstairs and ran outside and it was like 15 below zero. Okay. And then you took a really deep breath and that burn you would feel when you breathe in that like super cold air. That's how it felt. But it felt like that every breath I took. And I knew it wasn't normal. That was not a normal thing. And so at this point now, you know, I'm concerned. And I will say, I got to backtrack. There was one day, Vic, I'm sure you'll remember this, where it was like the weirdest thing. This was probably like day 5, maybe. I was like, I think I kicked it. I think I'm over it. I feel really good. I'm like, I'm on the other end of this, Vic. And my sister tells me, Joe, I got to tell you, I'm cautiously optimistic for you because this is like a common thing, right? And holy shit, that couldn't have been more accurate because I think it must have been the day before the burn starts because I fall asleep that day and I wake up and I'm like, son of a bitch, she should have been just purely optimistic because she was fucking right, you know? But anyways, so, okay, so now that. She tells me, you know, you should definitely go to the emergency room. I'm kind of, you know, thinking, I don't really want to go to the ER. I don't like to go to the doctor. I never go to the doctor. And then I notice there's a little bit of blood on my pillow. And I'm thinking, where's the blood coming from? At first, I think it's my lips. Then I'm thinking maybe it's my tongue because I have really bad dry mouth. And then I cough again, and there's a little bit of blood. Like I see a little bit of blood spray. So then I'm thinking, maybe it's my lips bleeding, and when I'm coughing, it's coming out. So I go in my bathroom. I'm coughing really bad at this point. I cough again, and there's cough in my phlegm. Now, the irony, I don't know if Vicky, you'll remember this, but at first when I tell her I'm coughing up blood, you were like, probably not, right? I mean, you were like,
I don't think I was as worried about it as you. I was like, you're coughing up blood. Your house is dry. You've been sick for a while. It's okay. It's kind of actually what went on in my head.
Okay, well, let me tell you what. See, she sees this crazy shit every day, you know? I mean, she's told me tons of stories, which we can't talk about because we cannot talk about any of her patients, but I am not her patient. I'm just her brother. But, she tells me stories, and Chris, I'm sure you'll elaborate on this. When a normal person coughs up blood, you're like, yeah, I'm going to the fucking doctor. Like, this is terrible. There's a real problem, right? I mean, would you not, Chris?
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's a major red flag.
Yeah. So now I'm like, okay, maybe I should go to the doctor. Okay. Now, I still have a little lingering cough from it, by the way, which is crazy because December 10th and it's January 23rd and I'm still coughing. But anyways, so now I do go. Now, this is an important thing for me to say in the podcast, and I'm sorry to my guests because I'm stealing all the wind here, but we're gonna get into some other stuff here. But at this point, everyone in my house, I'm just quarantined in my room. They hear me coughing really bad. They know I'm not doing well, but no one has really seen me yet, right? So I come walking out of my room and I tell my fiance, I'm going to the hospital. I having trouble breathing. I'm coughing up some blood. I need to leave. This is something that never gets talked about, and I don't want anybody to think I'm like soft with this. I think it's great for people to have emotions. As a matter of fact, I think some of the most successful people in the world, you have to be emotional to be a good salesperson. So usually I'm on an emotional high. This is an emotional low point for me. So I literally wondered if that moment, it was the last time I was going to see everybody. This is something that does not ever get talked about with it, because it's not the things that get talked about on the news, right? But I'm going to paint the picture when you have COVID. You get it. You hope it's not going to be bad. The majority of us, it's not bad, but for the few that it is, you have to go to the hospital by yourself unless you call the paramedics because you don't want anybody in your family to get it. So you drive yourself to the hospital when you can barely even walk to go to the bathroom. You have all of your kids in my case, my fiance, crying as I leave the house. And as I pull out of my driveway, I look at the house that I work so hard for, that I love. I'm in love with where I live. Chris knows a lot of my friends and people I network with live in this subdivision. And I literally wonder if it's the last time I'm going to see my house. Now, this is not a normal thought, right? Typically, when you get really sick, they diagnose you and they tell you have 6 months or you have a year or you get in a bad accident and you never have this thought. But with COVID, you realize the minute you leave your house to go to that hospital, they're not going to allow a visitor. Nobody's coming to see you. You may never see your shit again. Like this might be it. It's a really low moment and feeling. So I told you guys I'm not doing this for any politics, but I actually am doing it for the people, the 400,000 people that have died of COVID, for the people that have recovered from COVID. And it's this group of people that I think kind of gets lost in the shuffle for the people that haven't had it or had it so minorly that they just think it's just what it is. So that's how I felt. I got to the hospital. I couldn't even tell the women or that were there what was wrong with me because I was crying. Couldn't understand why, but I was crying and I'm trying to tell them I can't breathe while I'm crying, which was making me not be able to breathe even worse. And thankfully, I got admitted. And I actually drove to Elgin because my sister told me don't make the mistake of going to a small emergency room. So I drove myself all the way to Elgin and they did some blood work, which we're going to share and we're going to ask some questions about. And basically told me I had, and Vic, pop in because I never pronounce this right, but I had like glass something pneumonia, but basically my lungs looked like broken glass. Okay.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce that? Do you even know, or is it like the?
I can't think of the term right now, but do you have your report in front of you? It's right on there.
I know, but I do.
I actually can't think of the term. I'm a little distracted. And my dog's going in and out of my house, to be honest.
Oh, okay. Well, this is how podcasts nowadays work because you have Zoom and your life doesn't stop around you and you pray that you can do this. Well, anyways, doesn't make a difference, right? Basically, here's the thing. If I found it, nobody's going to remember how to pronounce it anyways.
Right.
But my lungs look like broken glass. Okay. So the good news is, though, my oxygen levels are not dropping to the point where they're going to admit me. They tell me, go home. We bought a pulse ox reader to check my oxygen levels at home. That's it. Now I get home, my fever spikes to 103.5 for days. I have 103.5 fever every night. And every night I'm calling Vicky, and now it turns into like shit. 6 o'clock is coming because it's like predictable. Okay. What, right, Vic?
I actually warn you if you remember.
Yeah,
sometimes
she did
you
warn
would be
me.
like, I'm feeling so great. I'd be like, yeah, it's not 5:30 yet. We'll see.
Yeah. And then 6 o'clock would come and I'd be like, holy shit, is this going to be the last night for me? Like seriously, is this going to be my last night? Now, this is where, to all my business owner friends and every person that's following me is someone like me or aspiring to do what I'm doing. At this moment in my COVID, I realized the biggest mistake I've probably made in my life is I don't have an updated will. And I'm laying in bed thinking, how am I going to call my attorney and get my will updated? Last time I updated my will, I only had one business. Now I have several. How am I going to, who's getting left what? And these are all very real thoughts, because when you're sick, as I was, you realize that, you got to have your affairs in order. And I'm not trying to make this a morbid podcast, but it's a lesson I learned during COVID. Remember, I said that I came out on the other side, a stronger person. And this is one of the things that I'll never allow to happen again. So just a little advice to people: make sure your affairs are in order all the time, because you never know when your card's going to get called. So the fever, horrible. Here's a scenario. I feel like any other thing, and Vicky, you can comment to this. Any other illness, if you call the hospital or your doctor and say I have 103.5 fever, they tell you should come into the hospital and we'll see what we can do. With COVID, they tell you sit your ass at home, lay on some cold tile, go take a cold shower, whatever it takes. Do not come to our emergency room. Right? I mean, Vic, would you agree? It's totally different protocol.
Yeah, and actually they're admitting, like, everyone admits different now too. So like before COVID, people would get admitted for things. And like now with COVID, we try to keep people home longer also. So that's another thing too, because like even they were like, go home. You're beating this at home. Go home. Which is like, you think about other sicknesses. If you're really, really sick, they're like, we got to admit you. We got to watch you. But like COVID's just different for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I mean, you feel like you're on an island, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. And Chris, one of the reasons Chris was so like excited and to be on is, we have a professional relationship, but we also have a friendship. And I'm telling Chris this story, and the biggest thing that I said, right, Chris, was that you literally feel like I almost felt like I was like on a deserted island, and I just had to fend for myself. And everything that was popping up, I just had to figure out. Like I had no saliva to eat. So what do I eat? Oranges, because at least they're wet. Okay, so at least with an orange, as I bite into it, it gives me some moisture so I can actually eat something. Because the only good thing that happened to me on COVID was I lost 22 pounds. And then the bad thing about the treatment was they gave me steroids to fight it, and I gained it all back because I ravenously ate. I feel like a bloated Goodyear blimp right now, So the only good thing that happened from COVID got counteracted to get the freaking pneumonia to go away, right, Vic?
Right.
And she knows it. I kept telling her, well, the good is I lost 22 pounds,
Yeah.
Yeah. But so very, very alienated. So then, one of the mistakes I made as who I am, I think people that follow know, I haven't drank any alcohol in 11 years. This was something I did for my fiance to help her in her travels of life. I don't smoke. I don't have any underlying conditions. Vicky, we'll attest to that, right? I mean,
Right,
I'm a
right.
healthy guy. Chris, you've met me, healthy guy,
Yep.
and like I said, like just totally rocked me, I actually kind of lost my train of thought where I was actually going to go with that, but so now I go back to work. This is what I would say. So I'm working through the whole thing because I have to. You know, there's appointments I had set, and some things I can do. Heck, I was taking Zoom calls on my phone, just not showing my picture and not telling people I was sick. You know, a lot of those failed because I was coughing so bad that people realized I was sick and said, "Hey, man, we're going to reschedule this," because I feel like they thought they were going to get sick over the phone. Like that. That's how much I was coughing, right?
Wow.
So we deal with that. And then it snows. So my dumb ass goes and I plow. And my sister was, Vicky knows, like, she's like, you better not be going out. You got pneumonia really bad.
I wanted you to have your rest. I think we have to be clear too. When you were going to work, you weren't exposing other people because you were always alone.
Yes, correct.
But you still need your rest, and you should not be pulling an all-nighter. Plowing was my point of it.
Yeah. Well, and so everybody knows, like, it's important for me. So my company is I have literally the best people at Langton Group. And actually, I'm glad, Vicky, like, you kind of made me think about something I need to say. My brother, John, I wish I could have had him on here today, except his daughter's a volleyball, literally is the best business partner you could possibly have. I mean, here's the thing. You want to talk about one of the benefits of being an entrepreneur? I was able to be sick for a month in 2 weeks, basically, and never worry once that my business was still thriving. Okay. I have the most fantastic people that run my business for me. My brother being the rock, and then my general manager, Tanner, my sales manager, Tony, my cousin, Kyle. I mean, literally, I could name every person off at the company because I was sick and I never questioned once if there was going to be a problem with the company. But the reason I plow is because I've always said to people, like, you know, I've never wanted somebody to call me boss. I'm a leader. So leaders figure it out and go out, because I've had employees work for me with the flu. You know, when it snows, I've had people come in with a broken arm. You know, as long as they can steer the truck and plow, they can work. You know, so I didn't want to be a hypocrite. So, you know, I go out and I worked, even though I was told not to. But anyhow, I went out the first night and kind of pushed my limits a little bit. And then we had another snow. And in that one, I worked for 31 hours, and unfortunately caused a massive relapse to me.